Good morning. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner. I'm a board certified obstetrician gynecologist in New York City, and I'm bringing to you all things health related for women. Thank you for joining me at the corner today. I'm having microphone problems, so I'm not using my microphone. It's all messed up, not working. So I hope it's not too annoying. I think there's a teensy hint of an echo on the audio right now because I'm just using the built-in microphone with my phone. So be that as it may, sorry, I have allergies. Be that as it may, last presentation I spoke about bread and butter topic, and that being yeast infections. Everyone just calls the name of their vaginal infection a generic yeast infection. So if you want the 411, the details on the information I provided the last time, please check out the previous presentation. Just reminding everyone that I do have a YouTube channel. It's also called GYN Corner, and it's nicer on the YouTube channel because everything is delineated, labeled, and it's easy to find topics. You can also go to the podcast. The podcast is GYN Corner for older presentations because the podcast is it's probably about a year behind the Facebook and the YouTube presentation. So the podcast, it's also GYN Corner. We're on all of the platforms. And the podcast is nice because, again, everything is labeled. It's easy to find. And if you just follow the podcast, you'll see all of the older presentations. I feel like I started the Facebook and the YouTube. I started them in 2018. Was it 2018? Maybe it was 2019. Yes, it was 2019, April or so of 2019. So we're going on 2 years now, March or April. So it's 2 years basically. And the podcast is a year behind these two, the Facebook and the YouTube. So regardless, it's nice to follow the podcast because you'll just be able in real time to follow all the older presentations. So last presentation I spoke about yeast infections and the fact that probably only a third of the time when someone feels like they have a yeast infection do they actually really just simply have a run-of-the-mill old yeast infection. And the time frame that they've been having symptoms is often a clue as to whether it's just a yeast infection, whether it's both yeast and bacterial infection, whether it's a bacterial all by itself, or whether it's a hodgepodge or smorgasbord of entities. So if it's only been a couple of days or maybe a week or so of symptoms, but they have a lot of symptoms. They have itching, burning, swelling, stinging, paper cuts, sores, or sore sensitive discomfort with or without a thick, chunky discharge, then it's most likely yeast because yeast is a strong irritant and it's highly inflammatory. So when one has a yeast infection, the symptoms will often come on hard and fast. The color, as I mentioned on the previous presentation, is not a huge help. It's just I always ask what the color is because I simply want to get in my mind a heads up as to whether or not they potentially have blood involved. If there's any kind of bleeding and it's only been a short amount of time, then it's most likely not yeast because yeast will usually not cause any kind of bleeding or blood-tinged discharge, brown, pink, burgundy, or really dark discharge, unless it's been like 4 to 5 months that they've been having the symptoms, and 4 to 5 months of relentless symptoms, not symptoms that are coming and going, but just constant symptoms. If there's a bad odor, then it's either not yeast or it's not yeast by itself because yeast doesn't have a bad odor. It can have a pungent odor or a sour odor, or for some people they'll say it smells like bread, but it won't have a fishy odor, a stinky odor, garbagey odor, an unpleasant odor. As I mentioned previously, lots of different colors. Most common are white, beige, off-white, or yellow. It can also be gold, pink, brown, green, blue. I've even seen almost a purple tinged ones, so lots of different colors. Colors aren't super important. And the most popular method to treat is an over-the-counter non-prescription option like miconazole or clotrimazole or gynosol. Those will all treat run-of-the-mill yeast infections. And a run-of-the-mill yeast infection, medically we call that Candida albicans. Candida albicans is responsible for causing a yeast infection about 92% of the time. It can be treated with all of those over-the-counter preps, either the 1 day, the 3 day, or the 7 day. The difference in the time frame is just that the 1 day is the most concentrated, it's the most powerful, so you're getting all of that medication in one dollop, as opposed to 3 days, it's been divvied out over 3 different portions, and 7 days, it's been metered out over 7 days, but it's the same amount of medication. That is also equal to the pill, the prescription pill we have, diflucan, which is the brand name, or fluconazole, which is the generic. Those tablets treat Candida albicans, and 92% of the time, all you're going to have is Candida albicans. Now, of the remaining 8%, that's going to be Candida albicans and an additional yeast category, a friend with it. It has a companion with it. And the companion, or the other, what I call minor players for yeast, are going to be, so the major one is Candida albicans. The minor ones are Candida glabrata, torrelepsis, and parapsilosis. Those 3 are responsible for about 8% of yeast infections with Candida albicans or just by themselves. They will not respond to the over-the-counter vaginal inserts, suppositories, ovules, creams, and they will not respond to the diflucan fluconazole. Now, if you have a yeast infection that partially responds to one of those treatments, then that usually means it's partially Candida albicans, and the portion that didn't respond is either not yeast, or if it is, it's glabrata, parapsilosis, or torrelepsis, and those will only respond to turconazole or Terazol. Terazol is the brand and turconazole is the generic. It's a prescription-only strength vaginal insert cream. It comes as a 3-night or a 7-night insert. Now, there is a 1-night insert for the turconazole, and that's gynosol. The problem with gynosol is it's a brand only, and the company that produced it, they were pushing it for a while, so they had coupons that came with it, and the patients were able to get that 1-night only insert for about $20 to $35. They're not pushing it anymore. I haven't seen any of the reps come by with coupons for it. Without the coupon, it depends on your insurance coverage. It could be $60. And a lot of the pharmacies do not carry the 1-night prescription insert for all of the yeast. They only carry the 3-night or the 7-night because those have generic options. Now, if you get the insert, the turconazole, that treats everything. It treats the yeast that the pink pill or the over-the-counter prescription or non-prescriptions treat, which is Candida albicans, and it covers all of the minor players, the additional 8%, Candida glabrata, torrelepsis, and parapsilosis. The literature and the research says it's about 8% of infections. I feel like it's on the rise. Don't know why, but it seems like it's on the rise. Just from my practice, I feel like it's about 30% of infections will have those diflucan or fluconazole resistant yeast infections. And what I've noticed over the years is when someone has those minor players, they often do not have the typical look, the cottage cheese clumpy pasty discharge. It's more often a runny, watery tinge discharge, so it doesn't look like a typical Candida albicans discharge either. And I guess last but not least would be A lot of times, or second to last but not least, would be a lot of the times patients will tell me they don't want to do the over-the-counter prescription because they're allergic to it. When they use that over-the-counter, they get a lot of swelling, burning, and stinging. They're worse, redness and tenderness. They're worse than they were before they used it. That's most commonly not an allergy. It's because when you do the insert sloughs off the yeast, so it sloughs all of the yeast that's hanging on the sidewalls of the vaginal canal. It sloughs it off, so you get like a huge downpour of that killed yeast, and it just accumulates and builds up on the at the vaginal opening because it's coming out. So at the vaginal opening, on the lips or the labia and the vulva, it's highly irritant. It's even though it's killed, it's sloughed, and it's been cleaned out of the vagina, it's extremely irritating, and that will mount a very fast and strong inflammatory response because you have a huge amount of it just sitting there at the vaginal opening and on the skin. So that's going to mount inflammation and swelling and burning and stinging in the whole 9 yards. If you're aware of that in advance, what you could do is take Vaseline or petroleum jelly, put a coat of that around the vaginal opening, around on the labia, the lips, kind of everywhere, diaper covered area. Then put the insert in, and if you wake up in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning, wash it off quickly, apply a thin film of the Vaseline. That is a protectant, so it will protect your skin from the irritant, so you won't have that inflammatory response. So that will make it more, amenable to using those inserts. So I hope that's been helpful information on I have a yeast infection. Thank you for joining me. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.